Welcome to Semiconductor News Decoded. I'm Ty, with 31 years inside the semiconductor industry, bringing you the real view from the factory floor. Today's topic: Nikon is fighting back, aiming to reclaim ground in the ArF immersion lithography market. Can a legendary name in optics stage a real comeback? Let's find out. As always, I'll explain everything in the most simplified way possible. Even a middle schooler should be able to follow along. If you're a specialist watching, some parts may feel oversimplified, but I'd like to prioritize giving everyone the big picture first. Today's analogy is about two designers, one who went all in on AI tools and one who kept betting on handcraft. So sit back and enjoy. Let me set the scene with a story. Imagine two designers who've worked side by side for years. At one point, they were equally talented. But then, one of them started embracing the latest AI tools. Using cutting-edge AI, they could produce more complex, more detailed designs faster than ever before, and clients noticed. The AI-powered designer started winning the big contracts, premium clients, flagship projects, the kind of work everyone wants. The other designer, meanwhile, kept sharpening their handcraft skills and refused to rely on AI. Over time, the high-value work quietly drifted to the AI user, and the handcraft designer's market share slowly eroded. But here's what the handcraft designer eventually realized. Yes, AI tools are powerful, but they're expensive to adopt. Small and mid-sized businesses that can't afford the steep setup cost, or specialty clients who need fine-tuned, bespoke work, actually prefer the hands-on approach and lower price point. There was still a meaningful market out there. It just wasn't the glamorous top tier. So the handcraft designer came up with a new game plan. If I build my own tools from scratch and handle everything in-house instead of outsourcing, I can drive my costs down even further. I'll stop chasing the high-end AI projects and go after the niche markets where AI struggles, and I'll undercut everyone on price to win volume. A genuine pivot in strategy. So what does this mean in practice? Which clients is the handcraft designer going after, and where exactly are they finding work? From here, I'll break down how this story maps onto what's actually happening on the factory floor in the real semiconductor world. Let me summarize the handcraft designer's stance. Stop competing on the AI frontier, drive costs down through in-house manufacturing, and go after the stable, high-volume niche markets where the AI-powered competitor doesn't have a decisive edge. That's the bet being placed. And honestly, Nikon's current position in the semiconductor equipment market is almost exactly the same as this handcraft designer story. Let me walk you through the details. The company we're talking about today is Nikon. While Nikon is widely known as a camera and optics maker, it has also been a major player in lithography equipment, the machines used to manufacture semiconductor chips, for decades. Lithography is the process of using light to print circuit patterns onto silicon wafers, and the finer those patterns, the more powerful the chip. Today, that market is dominated by ASML of the Netherlands. In particular, EUV lithography, the technology needed for the most advanced chips, is something only ASML can make. Comparing the resolution each type of machine can deliver in full pitch terms, ArF immersion at single exposure reaches around 80 nanometer pitch. ASML's low NA EUV reaches around 30 nanometers, and the latest high NA EUV pushes down to around 16 nanometers. Nikon is targeting the 80 nanometer pitch range and below, and with multi-patterning techniques layered on top, ArF immersion can reach even finer geometries. Nikon has announced plans to unveil a new ArF immersion platform by 2028. One of its key features is in-house manufacturing of multiple critical components, parts that were previously sourced from outside suppliers. By bringing those in-house, Nikon aims to cut costs and tighten quality control at the same time. From my years on the factory floor, I believe in-house component manufacturing means more than just saving money. When you control the specs yourself, you can respond to your customer's specific needs far more flexibly. So, which markets is Nikon targeting? The focus areas are mature nodes and peripheral circuits, DRAM memory, the non-critical layers of leading-edge logic chips, and advanced 3D integration for both logic and memory. In any cutting-edge chip, EUV is only needed for a handful of the most critical layers. The vast majority of layers, in both the most advanced logic and in DRAM, are still manufactured using ArF immersion. For DRAM specifically, it's not that 80-nanometer pitch is good enough. It's that ArF immersion combined with multi-patterning is the backbone of DRAM fabrication. That's squarely Nikon's target zone. Mature nodes are chips made with older, well-established technology. They're not used in cutting-edge smartphone processors, but they're everywhere in automotive ECUs, industrial equipment, and home appliance microcontrollers. These markets are large in volume and steady in demand, exactly the kind of stable ground Nikon wants to compete on. The non-critical layers of leading-edge logic are also a major opportunity. Even in the most advanced chips, the ones powering the latest smartphones and high-performance AI processors, EUV is used for only a small number of the most critical layers. The wiring layers and peripheral circuits that make up the bulk of any chip are still manufactured with ArF immersion. In other words, even the most cutting-edge fab in the world needs large numbers of ArF immersion machines. And with HBM, high bandwidth memory for AI applications, seeing explosive demand growth, DRAM fabs are expanding capacity, which creates new openings for Nikon to be selected in fresh line investments. Advanced packaging is another area worth watching. Technologies like HBM stacks and chiplet architectures, where multiple chips are combined in 3D stacks or side-by-side arrangements, also require lithography equipment in their manufacturing processes. This segment is growing rapidly on the back of AI chip demand, and many of the steps involved don't actually require EUV. Some steps can even be handled by simpler, less advanced exposure tools. In my view, Nikon's biggest challenge isn't technical performance, it's customer acquisition. Lithography equipment is purchased on extremely long lead times. When a semiconductor fab is designing a new production line, the choice of which equipment vendor to use gets locked in at the design stage. Once a fab has committed to ASML, they won't switch to Nikon mid-build without a very compelling reason. That's why landing the first volume production customer is make or break for this strategy. The first wall Nikon has to clear is simply getting written into the spec, getting recognized as a valid option. On the factory floor, it's not unusual to see a vendor's name appear on a spec sheet as a competitive quote candidate, and go no further than that. That said, Nikon does have real strengths. Reports indicate they're exploring collaboration with major global players, including Intel, Samsung, and TSMC. If Nikon's cost competitiveness genuinely improves, there will be windows of opportunity when new production lines are being invested. Personally, I see a tailwind in the global push to diversify supply chains for economic security reasons, and Nikon could find a lane there. I want to be clear that this is my own view, not an official position Nikon has stated publicly. Let me pull today's key points together. Nikon is targeting a 2028 launch for a new ArF immersion lithography platform. Rather than going head-to-head with EUV, they're focusing on areas where established technology remains essential: mature nodes, peripheral circuits, the non-critical layers of leading-edge logic and DRAM. To compete on price, they're moving toward in-house manufacturing of key components. On the factory floor, the hardest part won't be the equipment specs, it will be winning customers. Getting that first volume production order is the pivotal moment. National pride and economic security tailwinds are real, but they're not sufficient on their own. What matters is whether Nikon can become the machine that fabs choose at the line design stage. To wrap up, Nikon's move here isn't about chasing the EUV frontier. It's a grounded, realistic strategy. Take back share in markets where demand is solid and predictable. From where I stand, with 31 years in this industry, I think they're pointing in the right direction. When a former champion comes back sharpened and hungry, the moment to watch for is where that first production order lands. The day Nikon secures its first volume customer, both the stock price and the industry's perception of this company will shift significantly. That's all for today. I'll keep bringing you semiconductor news and analysis, so if you found this useful, Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. This has been Ty on Semiconductor News Decoded.